I found. So, allow recording.
Awesome. Thank you. So, hello, everybody. Well, welcome to our May IEG Tech Talk. Um, appreciate everybody being here, or all the folks that are going to watch this on the replay. Thanks for listening in. Um, Want to remind everybody on the call, please keep yourself muted. And this is being recorded. So if you come off mute, whatever you say will be recorded. Um, Throughout the talk, if you have questions, comments, what have you, toss them in the chat. We will be watching it and putting them up to Paul when appropriate. So thank you for being here, Paul. A couple of quick announcements. Uh, we are always looking for new tech talks. They can be on any Informix related topic. You got something cool you're working on. You've got a product that works with Informix that you're really excited about. I would love to see more on how people are using some of the open source tools out there with Informix. You've got some fun tips and tricks, something inside Informix you're real excited about, what have you. Really trying to expand the scope to the entire Informix community to get a better idea of what is out there, what people are using. If you'd be open to doing a talk, please let us know. Drop a note to any of the IG board members or reach out to us, any way you want to. Um, we are happy to help you put together a presentation if you haven't done it before, or co-present with you if you feel more comfortable with that. So we'd just love to have more community engagement. The other note is right now, IBM Tech Exchange in Atlanta is coming up. The call for presentations, it closes on May 22nd, so just a few days from now. But if you've got any talks you'd like to give there, please get those in. You do get a complimentary pass with presenting. So would love to see more Informix topics, or obviously if you work with other IBM products, you could submit for those as well, but we'd prefer the Informix side. So without further ado, I want to introduce Paul Watson from Oninit US, talking about some of the clever tools. Paul has been working with Informix for more than 2 years. He has put out some very neat utilities as well as information on the product, and I'm just going to hand it off. So thank you for doing this.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, so like everyone says, Paul Watson, contact details are on the screen there. Basically, I'm going to chat through some of the tools we've developed over the years and how we got to where we've got to. Our tools basically fall into, hang on, 4 categories: forensics, Ripper, which is something to do with CDC, a tool that dropped out of Ripper we're calling SQL Morph, and something, because I'm a Watson, anyone takes a mick out of me for being Dr. Watson, Sherlock Holmes, we've got an AI-driven tool for processing logs and various other bits of data. So under the forensics, back in the dark ages, I would do presentations at the IIUG explaining how to walk through your logical logs. Standalone tool that would, like I said, work through your logical logs, no CDC, no read-only, no nothing. And we were putting this out as a standard binary. Okay, and the idea was to try and enhance what we could get out of the onlog output. It had to run on the server. It will do log DB spaces. It would do its best on row data. If it haven't got full row logging on, we can only pull out the row that's actually in the logical log. We wouldn't go out anywhere else to find any more data. So the primary goal of this was just to make something we could walk through the logical logs and get this in a slightly different point. So the way it works, you do log walker, much like on log, and off it goes. It will start at a particular logical log, and this one we've got it grouped by XID. So it will, as it suggests, group them by transaction ID, remembering that the transaction IDs are not unique across the logical logs. They're only unique at that point of time. So this is just taking 2 transactions and grouping them together. Now, why does it have to run on the server? It has to run on the server because we needed some various bits of information out of there. IBM in their back up a second. Log Walker as it was, we could take a logical log file from another system, and as long as we had various system tables, we could process that logical log file with the copy of the systems tables and make sense of what was going on. So we could take a Solaris logical log, the actual physical DB space, copy it down onto our tools, run our tools against it. We've got the various system tables system tables, sysmaster tables. From that, we've got the part numbers, and we could interpret everything back. Now, IBM, in their infinite wisdom, decided they were going to encrypt everything. So now we can't do that. They also, part of the encryption process, they made our lives a lot harder. The utility now, the on-check utility, has a -S option, which is hidden from us. You need a password to get in, which expires after 24 hours. It's only valid for the current day. Or you're using Andreas's tool, Onion, and I think the password is only valid for 15 or 20 minutes on that. So we're not doing anything particularly clever at the moment. Okay, like I said, we're just processing what is actually physically out there. We can grab them from another system as long as we don't have encryption. So now, what happened once they started doing encryption, everything broke. Everybody's tools like DB Page or DB Dump or Art Tools, Chunk Utils, anything that actually processed the raw pages broke because we couldn't actually get in there and decode the pages. So what we needed was a debug tool that could decode and repair encrypted chunk pages. And obviously we want to do this offline. So we've developed a tool now that basically will take an offline page and give you the same output as the on-check would give you on a live engine. So on the screen here, we're looking at a table here. We run an on-check minus, on the left-hand side, the Infomix minus P454. We do exactly the same thing, but because we're working offline, we have to tell it where the chunk file is. We can do chunk consistency, etc., etc. Now, we can now change that, or we can capture that debug page as raw text down to disk. Okay, and then we can manipulate it, do whatever you want to do with it. But if you now look at, this is the same page viewed 4 different ways. On the top left, we've got the DD of the page. Everybody knows DD. So we've DD'd this out and we've made it look pretty. Top right, we've got the on-check report. And that is coming from the engine, on-check minus P454 again. And we're seeing the data there. We're seeing the page header. We're seeing the slot table. If you look at the bottom left, this is the on debug output. It's just formatted slightly differently. It's more of a matrix-based thing. But if you want the exact layout that on-check would give you, you just put the compatibility option in there, and it will give you exactly the same set of data that on-check will give you. Now, if you run on-check minus PP on an offline database, it won't find anything. If you run on debug on an offline database, it will come back with a page. So just to prove we can do clever stuff, what we've done here, top left, we've done a select from the database. We've got a payload, Infomix's Pure Dead Grill, which is very definitely a Scottish term. We can see what we can see out on disk on the top right-hand side when the engine is down. And in the middle there, we're patching the data. We're saying we're going to start at row 30, column 2. That's where we rely on the bottom left-hand graphic there, where it gives us the matrix we want to use to reference the point. So we're going to swap out at that location 32. We're going to put in the value 42, and we're going to do that on the live database. the live data, although the database is offline. And that will be re-encrypted and put back into the database. We bring the engine back online, bottom right, and you see the data has changed. So this allows us to patch encrypted pages. There is virtually no safety net in this. If you patch a row, a data point, and you put rubbish in and you break the engine, tough. There is a way back because we do capture the before image, but if you write bad data in, you could break the engine. The only guardrail we've got, you are not allowed to write past the end of the current page. So where we've changed just a single character there, if you gave it a set of values, it would change. If you give it 4 values, it would change starting from that row column, it would change those 4 values. Anybody got any questions?
Nothing in the chat, Paul.
That's fine. So now that we can decode pages, yeah, and we can obviously then we can do exactly the same functionality the onCheck -S can currently do. So if you are a person who is out of support with IBM, therefore you don't have access to the onCheck -S, we can do all the things that IBM can do using the onCheck tool. We can also replicate what Andreas can do within the Onion tool. That's a lot harder because what he does is a much deeper into the engine. But in theory, because we can we can de-encrypt the pages, we can do whatever we want to do with those pages. So you get the situation where you've got a broken chunk and an on-spaces force will not drop that out of the system. You're out of IBM support. We can drop that out for you now. Coming back to Logwalker, which is where we started. When we first were presenting Logwalker to various presentations back in the dark ages, wasn't long afterwards, IBM brought out this tool, CDC, Change Data Capture, which negated an awful lot of what we were trying to do with LogRipper. However, what CDC will not do, let's go over CDC first. So LogRipper, what it will do, the key one there, it reaches beyond what CDC can do. CDC cannot process any UDTs, it can't process UDTs, the exception probably being Boolean. So if you've got time series or geospatial or a custom UDT, CDC will not capture that information for you. So we've expanded CDC to the point that it will process time series data as well. The caveat there, you must run Ripper on the local machine because we have to go back into the physical logical logs, work out where the time series data is, extract it, convert it, and display it. We can't do that remotely, not without an awful lot of effort. So there's a number of CDC products out there, and what we've tried to do is write a generic library that takes CDC and generates a generic output, which then can be converted into whatever you wanted to convert it into. So we've done dialect mapping, and these are the ones that we currently have got up and running and testing. So if we capture Infomix data, we can push that data as raw SQL back into any of the systems you see on the screen there. And we'll make the translations of data types and data values and the SQL statements in flight. So if the date time changes or so another one, varchars are different between them or booleans are different, all that lot is done in flight as we push the data out to the connector in the remote database. It's relatively easy to configure. It's just a YAML file. which everybody knows and loves, ish. Within the log ripper, if we're not keeping up for any reason, we can spool things out the disk, a bit like a bit like ER does at the moment. It's a ring buffer within the memory, so so far it's been very, very quick. We haven't any real problems. It also copes with locale changes. So if your source database is in locale A and you want to write to locale B, across different databases, it will do that as well. So you're capturing US Infomix and you want to write it out to Chinese MySQL, it will do that for you in flight. We've got various validation layers in there to make sure that what we're doing is correct. With the advent of containers, life has got so much easier. We've got containerizations of virtually every database out there that we can test against. The interesting one being Ingress. Ingress is the only company that doesn't give you a freebie evaluation container without going through some hoops. One of the problems you've always had with CDC is because you're scraping the logs and you're scraping the logs and comparing them to the live schema, you could be in a situation where I'm looking at what the table was yesterday, but what the table was yesterday has been changed and no longer matches what is currently held in the system tables. The way we get around this, we have the ability to check against historic DDL. So when we're scraping the record, we find the table, we look in the historic DDL area, and if we find the table is different, we will use the DDL that is stored on disk, not the live DDL. And when we find that as a statement, we will then insert into the new table, but prior to giving you the insert statement, we'll give you the alter command as well. So if you're trying to replay going forward into another system, you're playing catch up for whatever reason, we will maintain the DDL live changes as we go through CDC. Again, something that CDC does not do. If you're not working on the live system, like I said, we can't capture UDT information. That doesn't mean the product breaks. It just means that we will put a flag saying, sorry, we can't do this at the moment. We're not on the live system. Or you've thrown a data type we don't know anything about. We would have to unpick that and move forward from there. That's not as generic as we'd like it yet. We can also replay against multiple databases at the same time. So we're capturing from Infomix and you want to write it out to a JSON file, MySQL and Kafka. We can do all that in parallel at the same time. And if one of the targets fails to catch the SQL that we're sending, it will be spooled and pushed out at a later date. Just to show that we can actually capture time series. So we found from the online log and the CDC record has come through. We picked up the table schema, detected there's a time series there. We've gone out to the sys tables. We've worked out what that time series looks like, and we've converted it back into either one of two things: a time series element function, so a put element functionality, or just raw SQL. Now, raw SQL is what would be used if we had to push it out to another database. Obviously, if it's JSON or Kafka or something, again, it would be that format for them. So we can capture stuff CDC cannot capture. Now, because of all the work we've had to do to translate the SQL in Infomix to an SQL in somebody else's dialect. What dropped out of this naturally is something we're calling SQL morph. And basically that started off as a pure, give me this statement in that dialect. The obvious ones being select first 10 star from table in Infomix is select star limit 10 in MySQL. So that's one of the simpler transforms to do. Because we're morphing, we can also convert stored procedures. So we can take a stored procedure and convert it to Oracle or Microsoft. So if you've got stored procedures, I've always liked UDRs. I find them blindingly quick, a lot faster than just a stored procedure language. So we've got the tool now. We'll just take a standard stored procedure, you drop it in and say, give me a C-based UDR or give me a Java-based UDR. And it will just sort that out for you. And it will test that it's syntactically correct, maybe not logically correct. We might have some issues, but it will give you something that will run. The only slight issue we've got is if you're taking a language where the SPL language is feature rich, I'm thinking particularly of Microsoft or Oracle, it will, when we try and convert that back down, we might not be able to have the full functionality. When I'm saying SQL morph here, this is not one way. This is not Infomix to DB2 or Infomix to MySQL. This is DB2 back to Infomix or DB2 to MySQL. So it's a full matrix. If we are migrating a Microsoft SPL into Infomix, it will convert that down to a CUDR. If we're coming from an Oracle PSQL, again, that'll come back down to a CUDR because they're much, at a database level, they're much more feature-rich language, and we don't have that capability, so we have to convert that down to C. If you're trying to convert into MySQL, at times we just throw our hands up and say, sorry, we can't do this. It just cannot be done inside MySQL. When we're doing these conversions, our test harnesses always apply the changes and test them against the target database. So just some of the test code we've been using. So we've taken some stored procedures from Infomix and we've converted it into a UDR. We've converted it into Java, MySQL, MS SQL, Oracle DB2, etc. And the various stored procedures on the left-hand side there, they're just some test code that we're doing. Some of them are complicated, some of them aren't. Now, there is a web interface for this, or there will be a web interface for this, but it's limited to how many files or how much data we'll change at one time. But there's a command line version for this as well. So basically, morph, what do I want to do? Where do I want to, what is my target? And off we go, and it will convert it for you. It's really powerful when you come to do, like I said, store procedures into C-based UDRs, particularly if you're doing store procedures that are an iterator function. Getting those working in CUDRs can be a bit of a pain. So, simple example, we've got a store procedure here, add one. We can't get it more basic than this. Add one and return, and with resume gives us an iterator function. So we write inside the UDR, we create this code, it compiles up. There's other code around it, but that's the basic format of what's generated. There's various debugs in there, tracing, etc., etc. But the functional element is what's on the screen there. Oops, sorry. No. Hang on, bear with me a second. It's decided to do something weird. Much the same thing. Yeah, so again, just another example of the iterator, and it will take your store procedure, in this case, obviously a function, and convert it into some C-based stuff. It will understand it has to be prepared. It understands it has to be cursor-based, etc., etc. Any questions so far? The key thing about SQL Morph, it's completely bidirectional. So like I said, at the moment, I think it's about an 8x8 matrix that will do the conversion. Jumping completely out of the SQL world, particularly, back in the dark ages, I still am, I was a big fan of a language called Prolog. Prolog is a rules-based fact finder, for want of a better term. And we developed a tool that could take data from IBM, throw it through the rules engine, and come up with basically what's wrong. The problem back in the day was if you're trying to do very large files, it just wasn't practical to move large files around. So if you're moving gigabytes of data 20 years ago, no, it just wasn't practical. Now everybody's so well connected, it's great. So what we're trying to do, or we have done, we will take IFX collect files, assertion files, onstat files, or not included on the slide. We'll take SQL explain files, particularly SQL explain files from very large SQL statements, and we can put those through our analysis. So it will configure, we'll check your configuration, health and errors and things like that, capacity planning, maybe performance and tuning, which is obviously driven out of your IFX collect. Very useful when we're trying to do things like, why did my database crash? We can process AF files. If it's a known stack signature, we'll find it and tell you why it went over, etc., etc. IFX collect is very powerful because the tool set, the rule set will go through all the code and all the various parameters and captures and do some analysis on it. So it's all rules based, it's all Prolog based. And at the end of the day, you'll get a PDF report. If you're doing this online and you've got an account configured, you can then start querying that report and asking it to expand on what do you mean by this? You say this is wrong. What do you mean? Why do you think this is wrong? So how do you get the data to us? Relatively straightforward. You upload it in various, it's just a screenshot, that's not the whole screen. You upload the data to us, you say off you go, and it will generate you a report. This is an AF file from one of our servers, and we've got an assertion failure. We know why. There's more detail to the report than that. I just captured the top, but I'm looking at this now going, well, I don't know what a semop really means. So I can now say to the back end, tell me more about what a semop error is. And if we've got it, if the account is active to use that functionality, you just use natural language, like everybody knows AI. You just put a natural language question in there, tell me more about what semop is, and it will come back and tell you that's what a semop is. And it will allow you to keep iterating or asking more and more questions around that report, or which might be an IFX collect or whatever, until you're happy. And you can drill down deeper and deeper into it. And that is all I've got to say. So basically, we've developed some tools. We came out of a product that was Logwalker, or might even be DB Voyer back in the day, or Onilog, I can't remember. And then we hit a roadblock because of encryption. We fought our way past the encryption now, re-established all our tools so they can work on encrypted data. We've taken CDC and expanded it so it can work against data CDC doesn't capture, and expanded that out from a standard shared library so it can now write in parallel to different databases. And because of the SQL work we had to do to make that happen, we ended up with something we call SQL Morph, which is a bidirectional, multi-layered or matrix-based SQL translation, which will translate dialect A to dialect B and give you back something that is syntactically correct. And then we pivoted again and we went into this AI-based front end for something we wrote a long time ago. We're calling Dr. Watson, that allows you to upload tools, upload statistics, etc., and analyze what's going on. One thing I failed to mention because I haven't got it on the slide deck, the SQL Morph. When you put in the SQL, if you're doing it online, you can ask it to analyze the SQL. Now, it will convert the Infomix SQL to ANSI SQL if you want it to. It can analyze the SQL for performance. If you give it a row size counts, anticipated row size counts, it will come up and tell you whether it thinks your query plan is going to be good or bad or indifferent. Trying to expand that out into non-Infomix dialects, but I'm not a non-Infomix dialect person, so that's a bit of a struggle. But the key there is to try and work out, is the SQL you putting into SQL Morph good, bad, or indifferent? We'll be taking large SQL files, large SQL explain files, and throwing this into the analysis tool, and it'll come back and give you maybe that 35,000 line SQL statement should only be, should be cut up, etc., etc. And that's all I've got to say. Hopefully it wasn't too quick. Hopefully it was entertaining. Hopefully there's some interest in there for people. Anybody got any questions?
Just curious, which ones of the tools, just to be clear, are you making publicly available, partially available, client only?
The core library for things like CDC and Morph will be probably are going to be public domain as a library. The ability to convert to build your own CDC application would be built on top of that library. If you don't want our product, we'll give you the library, you can go away and build your own. What we will not be doing under any circumstance is giving out the code that allows you to decrypt the pages. We can give you a version that can do the decryption, but the bit that actually works out how your data is encrypted, that won't leave the building. That makes sense?
Yep. And where would people
the Dr. Watson thing, that is free until you get to the point that you want to use the deeper analytics. And then it's like any AI model. You pay for some tokens, you use them up, you buy some more if you want. But the front end for Dr. Watson, you just upload the file when we make it public, and it will give you a report.
Thank you.
So the data is obfuscated. Depending what the data is, if it's a SSN, it's obfuscated, full stop, no way back. If it's a server name, it'll be obfuscated with respect to the model. But when we generate the report, it'll be such a word as deobfuscated. It'll be put back to the original format. But there's certain things are one-way changes. Some of them are bidirectional, depending on what the data is.
Hey, neat. All right. Does anyone else have questions?
I thought it was very thorough so far. All right. Tom, I just want to remind people that if they have sessions to submit for Tech Exchange, They should send them directly to IUG instead of submitting them on the IBM website, because IBM is not flagging products like Informix and DB2. So IUG will be filtering and selecting those sessions. So send them directly to us.
Art, you should give out a couple email addresses, because when I went to the member page and tried to click the emails, it didn't work for me. It may be my work blocks it.
All right. They can always use, I think we can always use webmaster@iaug.org, or
Yeah.
art@ or tom@.
Yeah, I used the Tom. I thought that would work.
Yeah. Yeah. Tom at IUG.org, art at IUG.org. We really like our, 3 and 4 letter names in the group. So, all right. Any other questions, either on this Tech Exchange or anything else?
We've also got a huge amount of 4GL tools coming through at the moment as well. So,
anything you want to mention, or just generic? You've got them coming.
We've got them coming. If you think about SQL Morph, it's basically an add-on from there that allows us to do some clever stuff with 4GEs.
All right, great. Anyone have? Oh yeah, Rhonda just put in chat. Rhonda at iiug.org also. So if you get it to any of the board members, we'll get it to the appropriate parties. So Paul, really want to thank you for this. I am genuinely excited to play with this, which I know I haven't had a chance to yet, but when I get a few moments. But these are incredibly useful tools, and especially after the encryption change, that really did block a lot of things. So really appreciate the work you're doing for the Informix community.
The encryption has been, it's actually, I chatted to you and Art earlier. It's like, it's been a very good, fun thing to do. I know it's a sad, lonely techie thing, but it is very interesting.
So, and again, Paul's information's on the screen. So feel free to reach out to him with questions or any information you're looking for. He is always happy to help.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, sorry, Tom.
Yep.
My telephone number's on there. If you want to just call, I don't have a problem with that.
He loves calls about 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. That's when he's in his best mood. So
depends what time zone you're in, and depends on the system's down or not.
Yeah, that is the eternal question. So, all right. Well, thank you all very much. Again, our eternal call for presentations for Tech Talks is out there. If anything you need, any ideas you've got, feel free to reach out to us. And thank you again so much.
Okay. Cheers, all.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Cheers.